Hello there, Dragonfire here, and coming at you with another movie review. And this time I am covering the Dumb and Dumber franchise. We kicked things off in 1994 with the original Dumb and Dumber. Um, this is one where um, it's one of the greatest comedies of all time, just a classic uh, 90s comedy movie, and I think the 90s had some pretty good comedies, and I really enjoy this movie. It's a classic. It's an all-time great. Um, I think one thing that really works for me in this movie is that Harry and Lloyd are so dumb. It's Harry Harry Dunn, played by uh, Jeff Daniels, and Lloyd Christmas, played by Jim Carrey, are the uh, two main characters. And um, yeah, it's really interesting. I like the fact that they're so dumb, but they play it in a world where everyone else plays it relatively straight. And that's what I wanted to talk about with this series is that uh, the the contrast between um, these two really dumb characters and the other characters in the movie that play it pretty straight, I think is what makes this comedy good. Like it's what makes this comedy work. And spoiler, but it's what makes the other two movies in the franchise not work. Um, so yeah, it's pretty straightforward plot. Lloyd, who starts the movie out as a limousine driver, um, takes this woman to the airport. She drops a briefcase, and he recovers the briefcase, and then decides to drive all the way from Delaware to Aspen, Colorado, to give her the briefcase back because in his mind, he's in love with her and all this kind of stuff. Um, it turns out the briefcase was full of money. They were being chased by some people who were uh, kidnappers and illegal activity. They actually kidnapped Mary's husband, one of the main characters. They kidnapped her husband, and they were trying to, um, the police have been after this whole situation, everything. It's kind of weird plot that kind of just all comes together at the end of the movie, but in in this one, it's not really about the plot as much as it is about the jokes. It's a comedy movie, but really, really great movie. One of the greatest movies of all time, especially for the comedy genre, in my opinion, of course. But I really enjoyed Dumb and Dumber. So in 2003, 9 years later, we got the second movie in the franchise, the prequel, Dumb and Dumber. Um, this one goes back to 1988. Harry and Lloyd are in high school. Um, uh, uh, the yeah, it's when Harry met Lloyd. They meet, I think they're probably at least juniors, if not seniors, but they meet um, for the first time in high school. And um, of course, they hired younger actors to play Harry and Lloyd. Um, to me, this one is it's interesting. You know what they were trying to do, and I think for most people, I think a big part of the reason why this one failed. I don't know if it was a direct to DVD movie, a direct to home video movie, or if it actually got a theatrical release. I'm not really sure. But for me, this one just falls short. Now, I know that a lot of people would look at this and say, well, the reason this movie didn't do very well, and it's kind of mostly been forgotten about, is because you replaced Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels. How could you do that? You know, you can't have a Dumb and Dumber movie without Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels. Um, while I agree that on the surface, this probably it probably feels that way. Like, yeah, no, they can't do that. I actually have kind of a hot take on this, and that is that I don't think that replacing Harry and Lloyd with younger actors for a prequel was the problem. I actually think that these two actors, relatively unknown actors, I don't know if any of them have gone on to be successful since this movie, but not to my knowledge anyway. But um, I actually think they do a pretty good job of playing the characters of Harry and Lloyd. Harry Dunn and Lloyd Christmas. Um, my problem with this movie is its script, its plot, and other things that happen in it, or other characters. Unlike, I feel like the first movie, like I mentioned before with the original Dumb and Dumber, um, I feel like the rest of the characters more or less play it straight, and it's only Harry and Lloyd who are these outrageously dumb people. Um, but in the prequel, they surround themselves with other characters who also are just too goofy and over the top. The villains in this story, so the basic plot is they're in high school and they have an evil principal who is wanting to get money from the government and whoever else, and then he's going to take that money, uh, instead of spending it like he's supposed to spend it on the special needs students, and having a special needs class at the high school. Instead, he's going to just take it, run off with his girlfriend, uh, who is the former like head lunch lady at the school. And um, it's there. Eugene Levy and I forget her name. Is that Molly Shannon? Is that her name? I believe it is. Um, have uh, this evil plot to you know is it Minnie Rogers? Maybe that's her name. Anyway, oh no, Sherry O'Terry. That's who she is, Sherry O'Terry. Anyway, so Eugene Levy and Sherry O'Terry, which are fine actors and fine comedians in their own right. They just don't work in this movie. Um, But yeah, so they're gonna, take the money and run. But there's just some ridiculousness in the plots of these movies and the weirdness of these characters that doesn't work. I think it works best when uh, Harry and Lloyd are the really dumb ones, and everybody else plays it straight. Now, talking again, comparing it to the original, I've actually seen some deleted scenes from the original Dumb and Dumber where some of the other characters in the movie out or act more outlandish, and I think the movie is better off that those scenes were cut because I really think it works. You need Harry and Lloyd to be the outlandish, ridiculously stupid, dumb characters, and you need everyone else around them to play it straight. So you have the contrast of these weird dummies in this in what feels like a more real world setting. Um, when every character in the movie is so outlandishly dumb or ridiculous, or the movie, plot just doesn't work overall. Um, it it definitely changes the movie itself, and it doesn't make it as good. And um, you know, this movie has a couple of one a couple of main villains, just like the original movie had with the two the kidnappers and all that kind of stuff. The villains of the first movie um, acted in a relatively believable, normal way, and a lot of the other characters in the movie are relatively believable and normal in the first movie. In this movie, the outside characters getting more and more ridiculous is what ruins it for me. Alright, so yeah. So Harry and Lloyd, of course, accidentally foil the plan of the evil principal at their high school, just like in this one, where they accidentally foil the plan of the evil kidnappers. So, basic comedy plot setup thing. Okay, let's go to Dumb and Dumber 2. Alright, the sequel to the original Dumb and Dumber. Now, I have to point out that this one ignores the existence of the prequel. So, this one, again, there's about a 10-year gap or so in between each one, or roughly speaking. So, the first one comes out in '94, the second one in 2003, and this one in 2014. So if they continue that one, I guess we'll get another Dumb and Dumber movie in 2024 or so. It should have come out either 2023 or 2024, but 2023 is getting close to being over. Who knows? They'll make another Dumb and Dumber. I certainly hope not. I don't want to see another Dumb and Dumber. Just being honest about that. I think the idea, they've done everything that they could do interesting with it, and I think they failed twice to follow up the original. So they've tried a sequel, they've tried a prequel. So yeah, I don't want to see another Dumb and Dumber. I don't think that they could really do anything with it. Um, but yeah, we pick up with them 20 years after the original. Apparently, Lloyd Christmas, played by Jim Carrey, is in the um, this hospital after Mary turned him down. He was so devastated by Mary's turn him down. He's been basically comatose for like 20 years, except for it's revealed fairly early on in the opening sequence that he was faking it the whole time just to get at Jeff Daniels' character. And so he's been faking it all this time. Um, and um, Jeff Daniels, it turns out, needs a kidney transplant, um, and or liver or kidney, whatever. I think it's kidney. And so he has to find a living relative, um, to get something from it. He has to find a organ donor match, um, and that's when he finds out that he may actually have a daughter. Alright, so there's some contradictions between this one and the prequel, so they pretty much ignored the existence of the prequel to make this one. Like in this one, we find out that uh, Harry uh, was adopted, whereas in the prequel, Harry lived with his mom. I think it's not really explained in the prequel. To my memory, it's not explained what happened to Harry's dad, but Harry lives with a single mother. But in this continuity, Harry lived with his adopted parents, so it's kind of a reverse of the prequel, because um, in the prequel, uh, it was Harry who lived with his single mom, and Lloyd was adopted and raised by a single dad who was not his actually biological dad. Is very heavily implied that it was not his real biological dad, but he was. So it was basically Lloyd that was adopted. Um, but in the sequel, it switched around. Harry is adopted, and Lloyd uh, uh, evidently was raised by his mom. We're not given a lot of backstory for Lloyd in the sequel, Dumb and Dumber 2, but what we do get, we know that his dad is dead, and so yeah. How long his dad has been dead, we don't know, but anyway, it looks like he was at least he has a mom who's still alive. So yeah, everything is switched. So it's either it was either unaware of the prequel or just didn't care when they put this sequel together. And the contradictions between the two, I would say, is enough to consider it a separate continuity. So, if you were going to pick two Dumb and Dumber movies, do you prefer the original in the prequel or the original in the sequel? Because again, there's enough continuity mistakes to say that you have to consider them to be in two separate continuities, two separate timelines, or however you want to put it. So, yeah, this one, the plot is they're gonna go get the kidney from his daughter, and kind of a spoiler here, but at the end of the movie, they find out it's not actually his daughter. So, yeah, they're really uh, you know just making it a different thing here. But once again, I feel like just like with the previous um, maybe again we have too many characters acting kind of foolishly and odd. I think it works better when everyone else plays it straight and it's only Harry and Lloyd who are the dumb idiots. Um, I mean, they do make the character who is teased at being Harry's daughter kind of dumb, And that one I think is justifiable, I guess, because they're trying to set up the idea that she could actually be Harry's daughter, um, because she's so dumb. Um, and Lloyd is actually attracted to her, and Lloyd wants to hook up with Harry's daughter and everything. But yeah, and of course, and then there's also another point in the movie, I think, where for a short period of time they believe that Lloyd might actually be the father. Then eventually it turns out that neither one of them are the father, but they're setting it up. They're kind of they make that character dumb so that you could believe that she might be the daughter of Harry or the daughter of Lloyd or whatever. Um, but then she turns out to not be either one of their daughters. So I guess because they're trying to set up, and sure there are stupid people in the world, that they set this character up as being really dumb. But uh, again, just like with the prequel, the dumb villains is what I hate about this story. So there's apparently some sort of plot going on, to extort money from this old guy who is the adopted father of the girl in the movie, who's around age like early 20s, um, born in like 91 or 92. And so when this movie comes out, she's like early 20s. Um, so, um, yeah, it's kind of a thing where they they play it up, and then they have the twist ending at the end that she's not their daughter. And Harry and Lloyd once again end up exposing a scam, and kind of helping get rid of the bad guy of the bad guys of the movie. But the bad guys act so over the top and weird and dumb that, again, that ruins it. I need the villains in the Dumb and Dumber movies to play it straight, and Harry and Lloyd need to be the comedic characters, not the other people in the movie. And so, yeah. All right. So, how would I rank these? Okay. Look, no surprise here, um, about my number one. So really, this is coming down, uh, to I'm gonna do it the more suspenseful way. So obviously, this is number one. No surprise. Number one, best movie in the Dumb and Dumber franchise. So yeah, it's an all-time great comedy classic. The jokes land. It's funny through and through. For the most part, it makes sense. There might be one little tiny plot hole type thing if you're nitpicking, um, with the character. The undercover FBI agent doesn't seem to make much sense when you rewatch the movie, knowing that kind of twist at the end with the undercover agent. That part really doesn't feel like it makes sense given what she did earlier in the movie, what her character is like earlier in the movie, to find out at the very end that she's an undercover FBI agent. But other than that, I think this movie works really well. Okay. Um, so, who gets number two and who gets number three for this franchise? Um, I don't know. This is close. Um, I don't really think either movie works that well. But I'm going to be controversial. I'm going to give my number two my silver medal in a franchise that doesn't deserve a silver medal. um, to Dumb and Dumber or the prequel. Um, yeah, I know it's controversial to pick this version of Harry and Lloyd over the version that is played by Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels, but I don't care. Um, this movie is fine for what it is, um, but a lot of the humor doesn't land, and that's also true for this movie. The humor just doesn't land again. And as much as you would want to bring Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels back and try to recreate the magic of the original, 20 years later they attempt it and they failed. So, so yeah, I'll give this one my third place, my bronze medal. 3 out of 3. So, all right, tell me what you think of the Dumb and Dumber franchise. Uh, well, give me your ranking. Tell me why I'm wrong for ranking the prequel over the sequel. Whatever. Do your worst in the comment section. But that's it for my review. Thanks everybody. Dragonfire out.